The HSS Redemption tore through the fabric of hyperspace like a shark breaking the surface of a calm sea. Inside the bridge, Captain Jack Morrison stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as reality reasserted itself in a cascade of blue-white energy. His weathered face, marked by a scar running from his left temple to jaw, reflected the ethereal light of nearby stars. "Multiple contacts detected," announced Araya, the ship's AI, her voice carrying an edge of anticipation. 17 Council vessels within scanning range. They're initiating emergency maneuvers. Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. The Redemption's emergence had scattered the Council's border patrol like pigeons before a hawk. 2 centuries of isolation had done nothing to diminish humanity's reputation for building warships that made other species nervous. "Send the diplomatic codes," he ordered, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "Let's try to avoid any unfortunate accidents." The Redemption itself was a testament to how far humanity had come during their exile. Nearly a kilometer long, its hull was an aggressive blend of sharp angles and weapon ports, wrapped in stealth materials that absorbed rather than reflected light. The ship looked like what it was, a predator built by a species that refused to be prey. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from her tactical station, "Council vessels are maintaining distance but have activated their weapons systems. They're transmitting." "Wait, that can't be right." She looked up, brown eyes wide. "They're broadcasting on frequencies we haven't used since before the exile." 200 years, Morrison mused, and they still have us flagged as a threat in their ancient warning systems. "Broadcast on all frequencies, Lieutenant. Let them hear a human voice." He stepped forward, squaring his shoulders. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the HSS Redemption. We come under Article 7 of the Banishment Accords, which allows for a formal petition of readmission after 2 centuries. Our weapons are powered down. We request guidance to the appropriate diplomatic station." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush diamonds. Morrison watched the Council ships on the main view screen, their organic-looking designs so different from human vessels. The Redemption could have torn through their entire formation in minutes, but that wasn't why they were here. Not officially, anyway. "Response incoming," Araya announced. "Text only. They're directing us to Diplomatic Anchorage 17. Interesting. That's their highest security dock." Morrison nodded slowly. "They're not taking any chances." "Good. Means they haven't completely forgotten what we're capable of. Helm, take us in. Nice and easy. Let's not give them any excuse to fire." As the Redemption glided forward, Morrison studied the massive space station growing larger on their screens. Diplomatic Anchorage 17 was a testament to alien architecture, all sweeping curves and crystalline spires, beautiful but impractical from a defensive standpoint. The Council had grown soft in their centuries of enforced peace. "Security scan incoming," Rodriguez reported, tension in her voice. "Should I raise shields?" "Negative," Morrison replied, though every instinct screamed against it. "Let them look. They won't find anything they're not meant to find." The Redemption's true capabilities were buried under layers of technological camouflage. Let the Council see what they expected, an impressive but ultimately unthreatening vessel from a fallen power. The truth would stay hidden until it needed to be revealed. A clipped artificial voice broke through their comms. "SS Redemption. Maintain current vector. Deviation will be met with immediate response. The Council acknowledges your petition rights, but reminds you that aggressive action will result in permanent exile." Morrison's scared face creased in a smile that never reached his eyes. "Understood. Anchorage Control. We're just here to talk." He switched off the comm and turned to his crew. "Look sharp, people. The real challenge isn't getting in. It's what happens once we're inside." The Redemption sailed toward the glittering station, its dark hull a stark contrast against the brightness of Council architecture. Humanity's return to galactic civilization had begun, and Jack Morrison intended to make sure it was on their terms this time. Morrison hated diplomatic functions. The crystalline reception hall of Diplomatic Anchorage 17 sparkled with too many lights, filled with too many aliens trying not to look terrified of the humans in their midst. His dress uniform felt stiff, the ceremonial sword at his hip a poor substitute for a real weapon. At least they'd allowed him to keep that much. "Your species hasn't changed at all," sneered Ambassador Till, a tall Centaurian whose translucent skin did little to hide his disdain, still wearing implements of war to a peace gathering. Morrison took a slow sip of his drink, hiding his reaction. Some traditions deserve to be maintained, Ambassador, like honesty, for instance. Before Till could respond, Araya's voice whispered through Morrison's neural implant. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the station. Pattern matches nothing in our database." Morrison maintained his diplomatic smile while his mind raced. The Redemption's AI had access to the most comprehensive database of energy signatures in human space. If she couldn't identify something, that was cause for serious concern. "Pardon me, Ambassador," he said, offering a slight bow. "I need to check on my crew." He made his way through the crowd, noting how other species created a subtle bubble of space around him. 2 centuries hadn't erased their instinctive fear of humans. Good, they'd need that fear soon enough. Lieutenant Rodriguez met him at a quiet corner of the hall, her formal uniform unable to hide her military bearing. "Captain, you're seeing this. ARIA's feeding it to my implant. What do you make of it?" Rodriguez's dark eyes narrowed as she studied the data overlay in her own neural feed. "Sir, these energy patterns, they're like ripples in space-time. Almost like cloaking technology," Morrison finished, "but not like anything we've ever seen." He turned slowly, surveying the grand hall with enhanced vision. There, subtle distortions in the space near the station's outer hull. Most species would dismiss them as artifacts of the station's crystalline construction, but humans had spent centuries learning to spot predators in the dark. "Sir," Araya's voice carried urgency now, "I'm detecting similar signatures at multiple points around the station. Conservative estimate suggests a fleet of at least 30 capital ships." Morrison felt his combat implants beginning to activate, flooding his system with enhanced awareness. "Show me tactical overlay." The world shifted in his augmented vision. Red highlights appeared around the hall, showing the ghostly outlines of massive ships sitting in supposedly empty space. The scale was staggering. This wasn't just a fleet, it was an invasion force. "Vorkath," Rodriguez whispered, recognition dawning in her eyes. "The Planet Eaters. They were supposed to be a myth." "Myths don't bend light," Morrison replied grimly. "And they don't infiltrate Council space without anyone noticing. Unless the Council's detection systems have been compromised," Rodriguez finished. "Sir, we have to warn them." Morrison watched as Council dignitaries continued their elaborate social dance, blissfully unaware of the predators lurking just outside their walls. The Vorkath had chosen their moment perfectly. The Council's leadership gathered in one place, their defenses focused on the wrong threat. The humans they'd exiled centuries ago. "Lieutenant, get back to the Redemption. Quietly. Begin warming up our real systems, but keep them masked. I'll try to warn the Council." "Sir, you know how they'll react to warnings from a human." Morrison's hand tightened on his ceremonial sword. "Oh, I know. 200 years of painting us as violent paranoids means they'll dismiss any threat we report. But we have to try. Because when those ships decloak," he let the thought hang unfinished. As Rodriguez slipped away, Morrison turned back to the gathering. Somewhere in this glittering crowd were the only beings who could authorize the station's defenses. The same beings who had exiled humanity for being too aggressive, too militaristic, too focused on threats that didn't exist. The irony would have been delicious if the stakes weren't so high. Now he had to convince a room full of beings who feared him that something far worse was waiting in the darkness, and he had to do it before the Vorkath decided to show themselves. Morrison strode into the council chamber, ignoring the outraged guests as he pushed past the ornate doors without waiting for an introduction. The circular room soared dozens of meters high, its walls lined with representatives from 100 species. At the center, the High Council themselves sat on elevated platforms, looking down at him with expressions ranging from disgust to fear. "This is highly irregular," First Speaker Xalthos announced, his crystalline form shimmering with disapproval. "The human petition for raid mission will be heard at the scheduled." "We don't have time for schedules," Morrison cut in, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "There's a Vorkath battle fleet sitting outside this station, cloaked and ready to strike." The chamber erupted in overlapping translations and shocked murmurs. Morrison watched as the High Council exchanged glances, their body language all too clear even across species barriers. They didn't believe him. "The Vorkath are extinct," declared Councillor Venra, her feathered crest rising in agitation. "They haven't been seen in 10,000 years. This is exactly the kind of warmongering that led to your species' exile." Morrison activated his neural implant, projecting the Redemption's sensor data onto the chamber's main display. "Look at these energy signatures. Your own systems can verify them. Those distortions aren't natural phenomena." "Enough." Xalthos's voice cracked like breaking glass. "First you violate diplomatic protocols, then you interrupt a council session, and now you attempt to incite panic with fabricated data. Guards, remove this human." As security drones began to move forward, a soft voice cut through the chaos. "Wait." All eyes turned to Ambassador Lyra of the Ketheri. Her silver skin seemed to pulse with inner light as she rose from her seat. The empathic species was known for their ability to sense emotions and intentions across vast distances. "I feel something," she said, her voice trembling. "A hunger, a darkness gathering around us. The human speaks truth." "Ambassador Lyra," Xalthos said condescendingly, "your species' sensitivity to emotion makes you vulnerable to human fear-mongering. Their aggressive nature naturally projects threats where none exist." Morrison felt his combat implants itching to activate, but he forced them down. "You exiled us for being too aggressive. Look at your history. The last time the Vorkath appeared, they consumed 12 worlds before anyone could mount an effective defense. We're not aggressive. We're prepared." "Prepared for imaginary threats," Councillor Venra scoffed. "Our sensors show nothing unusual. Our defense systems are state-of-the-art." "Your defense systems are compromised," Morrison growled. "The Vorkath have had centuries to infiltrate your networks. Why do you think they're choosing now to strike?" The entire council leadership gathered in one place, distracted by the return of the exiles. "I've heard enough," Xalthos declared. "Guards, escort the human back to his ship. We will consider this disruption when reviewing their petition for raid mission." As the security drones closed in, Ambassador Lyra glided down from her platform. "Captain Morrison," she said, her voice pitched for his ears alone, "my species stands with yours. We feel the truth in your words and the protective nature behind your warning. When the time comes, call upon us." Morrison gave her a slight nod as the drones surrounded him. The council had made their choice, but at least one species remembered that not all aggression was evil. Sometimes it was simply the determination to protect others from harm. As he was led from the chamber, Morrison activated his neural link to the Redemption. "Araya, tell Rodriguez to finish warming up our systems, and send word to our backup. The council won't listen, so we'll have to do this the hard way." "The hard way, sir." Araya's voice held a note of anticipation. Morrison smiled grimly as the chamber doors closed behind him. "The human way. Because when those ships decloak and the council realizes their mistake, they're going to learn why Earth didn't spend its exile sitting quietly in the dark." The security drones led him toward the diplomatic quarters, unaware that they were escorting the only person who could save them all. Behind him, the council resumed their session, blind to the shadows gathering around their shining station. The Vorkath chose their moment with brutal precision. As the council chamber filled for the celebration of 10 millennia of peace, 3 massive dreadnoughts shimmered into existence, their biomechanical hulls writhing with weapon ports. Morrison was already moving before the first alarm sounded. "Arai, battle stations. Rodriguez, light us up." The HSS Redemption's true nature revealed itself in seconds. Weapon ports that had appeared decorative blazed to life. Hull plates shifted, revealing energy matrices that had been hidden since their arrival. The ship transformed from a diplomatic vessel to a weapon of war before the stunned Council's eyes. "Council defense systems are not responding," Araya reported. "Vorkath viral infiltration confirmed. They have control of all automated defenses." Through the chamber's crystal walls, Morrison watched the 3 dreadnoughts positioning themselves for a killing strike on the station. Each ship was easily twice the size of the Redemption, their hulls crackling with enough energy to vaporize the Council station in seconds. "Sir," Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm, "we're violating about 15 different exile protocols right now." Morrison's scared face broke into a fierce grin. "Add it to our tab, Lieutenant. Show them what 200 years of exile taught us." The Redemption moved like nothing the Council had ever seen. Instead of maintaining a defensive position, it charged straight at the nearest dreadnought. The massive Vorkath vessel fired, its energy beam capable of cutting a cruiser in half. But the Redemption wasn't there anymore. The human ship's hull rippled with metamaterials developed in secret, bending light and energy around it. The Vorkath's shot passed through empty space as the Redemption appeared beneath the massive ship's belly. "Target locked," Rodriguez announced, her voice steady. "Quantum disruptors hot. Fire." The Redemption's main weapons had been disguised as atmospheric vents. Now they revealed their true purpose, spitting lances of concentrated quantum energy that ignored the Vorkath's shields completely. The dreadnought's biomechanical hull never stood a chance. In the council chamber, aliens pressed against the crystal walls, watching in awe as the massive enemy ship split apart like a broken egg. The Redemption was already moving, using the explosion as cover to strike at the second dreadnought. "Impossible," Counselor Venra whispered. "Their ship, it's not just a warship. It's an evolution of war itself." Ambassador Lyra's silver skin pulsed with the emotion she sensed from the human crew. "Not evolution of war," she corrected. "Evolution of protection. Feel it. Every move they make is to draw fire away from the station." The second dreadnought tried to adjust, its weapons tracking the Redemption's impossible movements. But humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for exactly this kind of fight. The human ship's hull absorbed energy, redirected attacks, and struck back with devastating precision. "Second target neutralized," Araya reported. "Third dreadnought attempting to retreat." Morrison's voice cut through the Council's comms. "Oh no, you don't." The Redemption curved through space like a predator in water, cutting off the Vorkath's escape route. "You wanted to see why humans were exiled. Here's a demonstration." The final dreadnought never got a chance to fire. The Redemption executed a maneuver that should have torn any ship apart, appearing simultaneously at 3 different points around the massive vessel. Quantum disruptors fired in perfect synchronization, and the pride of the Vorkath fleet died in silence. As debris from 3 supposedly invincible warships drifted through space, the council chamber remained silent. They had just watched a single human vessel, officially present for a diplomatic mission, destroy 3 capital ships in less than 5 minutes. Morrison's voice came through again, this time tinged with grim satisfaction. "Council control, this is the HSS Redemption. Area is secured. And before you start drafting another exile order, you might want to look at your long-range sensors. Because those 3 ships, they were just the advanced scouts." The Council's celebration of peace had just become a very different kind of historical moment. As the Redemption took up a defensive position near the station, its hull still shifting with barely contained power, the galaxy's great powers were about to learn why humans had spent their exile preparing for war. "Captain Morrison, First speaker Xalvas's voice shook with barely contained fury. Explain how a diplomatic vessel just executed military maneuvers that violate every term of humanity's exile. Morrison stood in the council chamber, surrounded by the debris of their shattered certainty. Through the crystal walls, the redemption hung in space like a dark promise. I could explain, he said, checking the tactical feed in his neural implant, or I could show you why we really came back. He tapped his neural link. Signal the fleet. Time to drop our other little surprise. Space rippled around the council station. At first, it looked like heat distortion, the kind that shimmers above hot pavement. Then the distortions took shape. One by one, human ships materialized from seemingly empty space, each one different from the last. The HSS Nemesis appeared first, its hull bristling with rail guns and missile pods. Then came the HS Thunderchild, its experimental plasma arrays already charged. The HSS Warrior, HS Defiant, and HSS Vigilant emerged in perfect formation, their designs representing different evolutionary paths of human military technology. Impossible, Counselor Venera breathed. Our sensors would have detected. Your sensors. Morrison laughed without humor. The same sensors that can't detect the Vorkath fleet gathering at the edge of the system. Humanity's been busy during our exile, Counselor. We didn't just advance our weapons, we mastered the art of hiding them. Ambassador Lyra moved forward, her silver skin pulsing with a mix of fear and hope. How many ships do you have? Enough, Morrison replied, watching as 3 more vessels shimmered into view. The Redemption wasn't just carrying a petition for red mission. She was carrying coordinates for our defense fleet to follow. A fleet we built because we knew this day would come. The council chamber erupted in chaos as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't spent their exile crying about their punishment. They'd spent it preparing, evolving, becoming something that even their enemies hadn't anticipated. Sir, Aria's voice came through Morrison's neural link. Long-range sensors confirm massive Vorkath fleet movements. They're accelerating toward the station. Estimate 37 capital ships. Morrison's scared face set in grim lines. Tell Rodriguez to coordinate with the fleet. I want targeting solutions for every ship we can detect. And get me a private channel to Ambassador Lyra. The Ketheri ambassador's eyes widened as Morrison's voice whispered in her mind. Transmitted through technology the council hadn't known existed. Your people can sense the Vorkath emotions, their intentions. We need that edge. Will you help us protect these beings who fear us both? Lyra's answer came without hesitation. The Ketheri remember who tried to warn them. We stand ready. Morrison turned back to the council, his voice carrying across the chamber. You have 2 choices. Continue treating us like exiled barbarians and face the Vorkath alone, or accept that sometimes civilization needs warriors to survive. Your automated defenses are compromised, but we came prepared for a fight. Through the crystal walls, the human fleet took up defensive positions around the station. Each ship was a different nightmare of military evolution, representing paths of development that had been deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable by council standards. Now they were all that stood between civilization and annihilation. The Vorkath are coming, Morrison continued, watching the fear play across alien faces. They engineered our exile because they knew we could detect them, fight them, stop them. Now you have to decide. Do you want to survive your peace or die by your principles? First speaker Xalthos looked from the assembled human fleet to the tactical displays showing the approaching Vorkath armada. His crystalline form trembled as he spoke the words that would change galactic history. Captain Morrison, the Council grants emergency military authority to humanity's forces. Morrison's grim smile returned as he activated his combat systems. Aria. Send to all ships. Battle Plan Omega. Show them why humanity never stopped being warriors. The real battle for civilization was about to begin, and humanity was done hiding its strength. Space erupted in a symphony of destruction as the Vorkath fleet emerged from hyperspace, Their biomechanical ships, each one larger than the last, filled the void like a swarm of metal locusts. The initial volley of energy weapons lit up the darkness, aimed at overwhelming the station's compromised defenses. But humanity had other plans. Pattern Sigma 3, Morrison commanded from the Redemption's bridge. Show them what exile taught us about dancing. The human fleet moved like no military force the Council had ever witnessed. Ships paired off and separated in fluid motions, creating overlapping fields of fire. The HSS Thunderchild unleashed a barrage of plasma, while the Nemesis railguns punched holes through Vorkav armor. Their ships are adapting to our weapon signatures, Rodriguez reported, her hands flying over tactical controls. Biological components are learning our patterns. Morrison nodded grimly. Then let's give them something new to learn. Araya, signal the Ketheri vessels. Execute maneuver Dark Mirror. Ambassador Lyra's silver-hulled ships, hidden until now, emerged from their own cloaking fields. The empathic species' ability to sense the Vorkath's intentions gave the human fleet precious seconds of warning before each enemy move. Vorkath flagship detected, Araya announced. Mass readings suggest a planet-killer-class vessel. Through the Council chamber's windows, the aliens watched in awe as human ships performed maneuvers that should have torn them apart. The Redemption led a charge straight into the heart of the Vorkath formation, its metamaterial hull absorbing enemy fire and redirecting it back at the attackers. Multiple hostile contacts, closing fast, Rodriguez called out. They're trying to flank our position. Morrison's scared face reflected weapons fire as he made his decision. Signal the warrior and defiant. Spring the trap. Two human vessels that appeared to be retreating suddenly reversed course, their hulls splitting apart to reveal massive gravitational weapons. The Vorkath ships found themselves caught in a manufactured gravity well, their biological components struggling against forces they couldn't adapt to. Target those ships, Morrison ordered. All vessels, concentrate fire. The combined firepower of the human fleet turned space itself into a killing ground. Vorkath vessels, for all their technological terror, discovered that humanity had spent 2 centuries learning how to be even more terrifying. Sir, Araya's voice carried an unusual note of concern. The Vorkath flagship is powering up its main weapon. Energy readings suggest they intend to destroy the entire sector. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Not on my watch. Rodriguez, prepare the Redemption's core for overload. Ambassador Lyra, I need your ships to predict where that monster will fire. The Ketheri ships moved into position, their crews projecting empathic readings of the Vorkath commander's intentions. The flagship's weapon began to glow with impossible energy, a sight that had heralded the death of dozens of worlds. All ships, execute Formation Phoenix, Morrison commanded. Let's show them humanity's final card. The human fleet moved as one, creating a pattern that seemed random at first. But as the Vorkath flagship prepared to fire, the true genius of human strategy revealed itself. Each ship's position formed part of a massive energy matrix, with the Redemption at its heart. Core at critical levels, Rodriguez reported. Sir, if we do this. Morrison's voice was steel. Sometimes you have to risk everything to protect what matters. Now, the human fleet activated their secret weapon, a synchronized quantum field that turned their ships into one massive energy conductor. As the Vorkath flagship fired its planet-killer weapon, the human ships caught the energy in their artificial matrix. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then Morrison gave the order that would be remembered for centuries. Return to sender. The combined power of the human fleet, enhanced by the Vorkath's own weapon, lashed out in a single devastating beam. The flagship, for all its terror and technological superiority, never stood a chance. In the council chamber, aliens watched in stunned silence as humanity proved why they had never been truly exiled. They had simply been preparing for this moment, becoming the guardians that civilization needed, whether it knew it or not. In the aftermath of battle, the council chamber was eerily quiet. Debris from Vorkath ships drifted past the crystal walls like metallic snow, while the emergency teams from human vessels conducted rescue operations on damaged sections of the station. Morrison stood before the High Council, his dress uniform now battle-worn, holding a data crystal recovered from the Vorkath flagship. "You should see this," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of revelation. "Area, display the files." The chamber's holographic system activated, showing records that made even the most composed council members shift uncomfortably. The Vorkath had been planning this for centuries, and humanity's exile had been the first step. 200 years ago, Morrison explained, when the council received reports about human aggression, about our paranoid military buildup, who do you think was feeding you that information? First speaker Xalthas's crystalline form dimmed with realization. The reports came through our most trusted diplomatic channels. Channels the Vorkath had already infiltrated. Morrison finished. They recognized something in us that terrified them. Not our technology, not our weapons. They feared our instincts. The data crystal projected images of human colonies from before the exile. Settlements that had detected and repelled early Vorkath scout ships, military outposts that had spotted their cloaked vessels, research stations that had begun developing countermeasures to their biological technology. They couldn't allow us to remain part of the council. Morrison continued. We were the only species that could consistently detect their presence. The only ones whose paranoid nature made us look for predators in every shadow. So they engineered our exile, using your own peaceful intentions against you. Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her silver skin pulsing with shared emotions. The Vorkath records confirm it. They spent decades manipulating council opinion, ensuring that humanity's warnings would be dismissed as aggressive paranoia. They needed us isolated from each other. But they made one crucial mistake, Morrison said, his scared face reflecting the holographic displays. They thought exile would break us, turn us inward, make us forget about protecting others. Instead, you spent 2 centuries preparing for this very moment. Councillor Venera finished, her feathered crest drooping with shame. While we congratulated ourselves on maintaining peace, you were building the means to defend it. The data crystal revealed more. Detailed Vorkath plans for the invasion, centuries of careful infiltration, and their growing fear as they detected human ships far from Earth, always watching, always preparing. They had meant to strike earlier, but humanity's hidden fleet had kept them cautious, uncertain. Your exile didn't weaken us, Morrison explained, watching the council members' reactions. It freed us to develop technologies you would have forbidden, strategies you would have called too aggressive. We became what we needed to be, not just warriors, but guardians. First speaker Xalthas rose from his elevated platform, his crystalline form resonating with formal authority. Captain Morrison, the council requires time to process these revelations. The implications are clear, Morrison cut in. The Vorkath are still out there. This was just their first major strike force. There will be more, and your defenses are still compromised. You need us, not as supplicants begging for raid mission, but as equals ready to stand guard. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the situation settled over the assembled species. Through the crystal walls, human ships continued their patrol, their dark hulls no longer a source of fear, but of reassurance. There's more in this data crystal, Morrison added quietly. Details about other threats the Vorkath have been hiding from you. Things that humanity has been fighting in secret while you celebrated your peace. The question isn't whether to readmit us to the Council. The question is whether the Council is ready to face the real state of the galaxy. The future of galactic civilization hung in the balance, and humanity's role in it would never be the same. The exiles had returned not seeking forgiveness, but offering protection. Now the council had to decide if they were ready for the truth about the darkness between the stars. 1 month after the battle, the council chamber had been transformed. Where ornate decorations once hung, tactical displays now monitored the space around the station. The crystal walls had been reinforced with human-designed energy matrices. Even the council members themselves had changed, their formal robes now accompanied by emergency survival gear, a concession to harsh reality. Morrison stood at the center of the chamber, but this time not as a petitioner. The scars on his face caught the light as he faced the assembled species of the galaxy. Behind him, through the reinforced walls, the combined fleet of humanity and their allies patrolled with vigilant purpose. The Galactic Defense Force. First Speaker Gazalthos announced, his crystalline form glowing with formal authority, requires a commander who understands both the art of war and the importance of protection. The Council nominates Captain Jack Morrison for this position. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. With respect, First Speaker, I have a counter-proposal. He gestured, and Ambassador Lyra glided forward, her silver skin shimmering with shared purpose. The Ketheri have proven themselves true allies, Morrison continued. They saw the truth when others wouldn't listen. Any defense force should be built on the partnership between human strength and Ketheri insight. You would share command? Councillor Venra asked, her feathers rippling with surprise. We would share purpose, Morrison corrected. Humanity spent 2 centuries learning we don't have to stand alone to stand strong. The Vorkath tried to isolate us because they feared what we could teach others. Let's prove them right. Through his neural link, Araya displayed the proposed structure of the new force. Human warships paired with Ketheri sensors. Council technology enhanced by human innovation. A defense network that combined the best of all species, wrapped in humanity's hard-earned experience of watching the darkness between stars. The Vorkath aren't gone, Morrison reminded them. And they're not the only threats we found lurking in the shadows. Earth's exile forced us to become guardians. Now we're offering to teach others to do the same. First Speaker Gazalthos descended from his platform, approaching Morrison directly. A break from centuries of protocol. You could have demanded revenge for your exile. Instead, you offer partnership. Morrison's scared face remained serious. Revenge is easy. Protection is harder. We learned that lesson in the dark, watching civilizations that feared us while we fought to keep them safe. Now it's time for everyone to step into the light. The council chamber hummed with energy as decisions 2 centuries in the making came to fruition. The HSS Redemption hung in space outside, its dark hull now bearing new markings. GDF Redemption, the first ship of the combined Galactic Defense Force. There will be those who resist this change, Councillor Venra warned. Species who cling to the old ways. Let them, Morrison replied. Humanity will do what we've always done, protect them anyway. But this time, we won't do it alone. Ambassador Lyra's voice carried across the chamber. The Ketheri accept this partnership. We will be the eyes that see danger coming, while humanity provides the strength to face it. One by one, council members stood, adding their species' support. The chamber that had once exiled humanity now witnessed their return, not as supplicants, but as teachers, warriors who had learned that the greatest victory isn't in winning battles, but in preventing them. As the formal ceremony concluded, Morrison looked out at the stars through the reinforced crystal walls. The darkness between them held threats that the Council was only beginning to understand. But humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment, not just to fight, but to lead. Araya, he vocalized through his neural link. Signal the fleet. Begin Defense Protocol 1. Across space, human and Ketheri ships moved in perfect coordination, beginning the endless watch that would keep civilization safe. The exiles had returned, bringing with them not just the strength to fight, but the wisdom to protect. And in the depths of space, the galaxy's predators learned a new truth. Humanity's exile hadn't weakened them. It had forged them into something far more dangerous, guardians who remembered why they fought.